everybody.
Hello.
Thank you, Lynn. Yes, hello, I'm Laura Alexander. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm an ugly art coach, which is a funny title I've given myself, which just means I encourage people, both artists and non-artists alike, to make as much ugly art as they can, as much as serves their journey. And to love their ugly art, which is a really hard thing for a lot of people to do. We're really hard on ourselves. I don't know if you've noticed this. But yes, as Lynn mentioned, my journey has taken a lot of detours, and ultimately, ugly has become the word that has become my joie de vivre, my purpose in life. I love making ugly art. I love talking about it. And that word is very subjective. So you're going to see a lot of ugly art. You're going to think some of it's ugly. You're going to think some of it's not. You might think all of it is. But ultimately, this word is subjective to each individual. And what I've come to think of it as is permission. It's permission to get started and to make art, whatever it looks like, or to do whatever it is that you're curious about doing. But my journey began because, as Lynn mentioned, I was a perfectionist who started a business and realized that being a perfectionist was a problem. You can't really be a perfectionist and try new things. It doesn't work very well. So I started making ugly art intentionally, kind of on the side, on top of, doing my business. I had already quit my job, so I needed to make money. So I needed to work through these issues. I needed to work through my avoidance and to just do the thing. So I started making ugly art and challenging myself in these moments to make a mistake, training my nervous system that it was in fact okay and safe to do so. So playing around with proportions, with spelling, especially as an editor, spelling mistakes are a big no-no. Playing around with colors that I hated. I ended up with a lot of scribbles, a lot of things that looked like a 4-year-old made them, and truly just started having so much fun doing this. And I kind of started wondering, I was like, why doesn't everyone do this? And a lot of people get just so caught up in, their heads of what they can and cannot do. And for people who are artists, and I'm sure many of you are, you might be like, well, duh, you're gonna make ugly art along the way in your pursuit of an artist's life. It didn't occur to me. It never occurred to me as someone who was a perfectionist who followed, checked all the boxes in life, did what I thought what my family had told me I needed to do. So I ended up just making a lot of weird stuff and finding out what delighted me and really started delighting myself. And in this process, I realized that there was a lot of surprises to be found in creativity. This piece in particular started off on a really anxious day for me, and I was just using my hand that was full of energy to put dots on a page, just over and over dots on a page. And then I thought, why not connect these dots? And then as I connected the dots, I started to see faces. And so I gave the faces eyeballs and mouths. And what ended up being a weird blob of animals. And I really loved it. So then I was like, oh, maybe I'll try it again. And then I didn't like it as much the second time. But each time I learned something new about my art, about the techniques I wanted to use. I ended up having so much ugly art, I was like, what the hell am I going to do with all of this? I ended up cutting it up and making something even more hideous. I just said, it's not, it's beautiful. Again, ugly is completely subjective. But what I ended up learning is that unbridled creativity, when we truly let ourselves make art, see ourselves in a moment when maybe we're judging ourselves a little bit, it's an express lane to joy and connection to ourselves, connection to other people when we allow and invite other people into this journey with us. And this realization really sparked a revolution for me. I wanted to talk about it constantly. I was like, did you guys know that you could just do stuff? I didn't know that. Isn't this amazing that we can just do stuff for the love of doing that? So I started the Ugly Podcast. An entrepreneur friend and I were having these discussions about being creatives, being entrepreneurs, and I was like, you know what? We got to make a podcast. And I knew it wasn't going to be. I didn't know how to start a podcast, so I was like, well, let's set the bar low. So it's the Ugly Podcast, and it's been streaming here in Tacoma ever since its birth on Radio Tacoma. And I'm still doing it today. My friend had to step down as they focus on their business and their family, but I interview other creatives and talk about how they navigate the mental roadblocks that get in our way, that stop us from being creative, that hold us back from making the art that we want to make. So we explore all of these topics, and it's lovely. It's my passion project. It's delightful. I continue to make art through this process, using it as a way to figure out what was happening to me during this process, because it was making art regularly was helping me realize a lot of things about myself that I wasn't expecting to learn. I started getting in touch with my little emo self, that little teenage version of me who would write sad poetry and just wanted to be seen, but never thought that was creative, never thought that was worth showing people. So I got to give more space for that version of me to show up. I started using art as a way of playing with my feelings. What does a feeling look like? It doesn't look like anything, but with art, it does. How that feeling changes over time. I started making these little feelings paintings, these watercolors, just sitting with myself in the moment asking, what color am I, what texture am I, and putting that on the page. Ended up being a really beautiful therapy for myself. I worked with different mediums, collage, painting. Oh no. Nope, it's okay.
That's for sure.
Eric. He's on it. So this message just continued to show up for me. Surprises are found among the rot. What we think is ugly, that's where there's beauty. It's the contrast of both, and there's a duality that's there, but it doesn't need to be one or the other. It can be both. So I started doing this with other people, leading virtual workshops. I led these intuitive ugly art vision boarding workshops with my writing community. And that has been a wonderful, beautiful experience. We do that every month. I started, asking what else I wanted to foster in my creativity, bringing art with me wherever I go, trying out different things, different styles, pointillism, abstract blobs. This was one of my favorite paintings I've ever made. And I think it's the only painting I've ever made so far, acrylic-wise. But I was just with my cousin, and we just decided to make big brush strokes and see what happened. Eventually I saw a bird, and the bird became a phoenix. And it's still one of my favorite paintings I've made today. Ultimately, I started using art as a way to create altered spaces for myself for healing and discovery. These weird liminal spaces, and in that process, discovered my queerness, discovered that I'm genderqueer, and started exploring other aspects of myself, and ultimately getting divorced. And then art became a place for me to heal through that and discover who I am and who I wanted to be. Ultimately, it is a place of evolution and allowing myself to evolve through my art, personally and beyond, has been an incredibly rewarding experience, to the point where I know that everyone is creative now. As myself, I never thought I was creative. So I now know that literally every single human being, whoever you are, is creative. So how can we allow ourselves to evolve in these ways? How can we give ourselves compassion to just create regardless of what it looks like? ultimately, just that's my message. Just make a mess of your life. It's okay to make mistakes. I started, again, expanding my workshops after the divorce, after I had time to really process a lot of that and heal. I came back to this idea of sharing this message with others. So this was my workshop with Creative Mornings. This was in person here in Tacoma. I did a junk journaling workshop. Again, junk journaling workshop. And this was at the library. I just did a library series called Subverting Perfectionism Using Ugly Art. So these were some of the monstrosities that we made, and I absolutely love them. And ultimately, I keep saying ultimately, art became, I could see how making art regularly was evolving my art. So those feelings paintings that I showed earlier started to get more complex, started to have more color, more detail. And I truly didn't know this could happen, which any artist is like, duh, when you do something, you grow. And so it's important to experience that. And then also to come back to weird little monsters that are absolute nonsense and enjoy that too. It's all part of this process of evolving. So these are some of my most recent things that I've made where I've been able to see a style emerge, something that are more personal to me, that are able to be translated onto the page. So ugly, again, takes on new meaning. It became permission for my style to evolve. And generally, when you're afraid to move, you sit down and you create. And I'm branching out to all mediums now. So I've ventured into ceramics. I'll be leading a workshop next Saturday here in Tacoma. We're gonna all make ugly mugs and learn about this process of transforming shame, so depicting your shame in the clay and then deciding what you wanna do with it. Do you wanna cover it over? Do you want to integrate it into a new design? And making it something new and taking control of the things that usually control us. So that is what I do, and that is the art that I make.
Questions? Anybody sell your work?
I have not ventured into selling my work quite yet, mostly because I'm lazy and don't want to make a shop.
Here we go. The whole paradigm of starving artists. Are you getting sponsors for your podcast? I mean,
there are no sponsors for my podcast.
do you want to? The whole capitalism thing, right? So
capitalism is unfortunate, and I do need to survive in it. Thankfully,
right.
My editing work does that for me.
Okay.
I would love to figure out how to get the podcast to make money. I haven't spent enough time specifically on that to do that. And it's also a thing where I'm very conscious of how my art might change if I start putting pressure on it. So I'm doing so very slowly and deliberately because I'm still a perfectionist at heart. And so I'm very aware that putting that kind of pressure on my art and like selling my art could make me ultimately shy away from it. So I'm approaching that slowly, exploring it slowly.
Sorry to hear about your divorce. So.
Oh, it's okay. It was a great decision.
Okay, all right. Been there, done that, yeah. Okay.
Any more questions?
So where do we go to sign up for your classes, or
good question. I do have a couple flyers up here, so I'm happy to hand those out. And my business is Scribe and Sunshine. It's a conglomeration of my editing work and my creative work. And so you can find out about events at scribeandsunshine.com, and I'm also on Instagram at scribeandsunshine. Yeah.
Scribe and Sunshine.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. How many people here are on the Tacoma Art Commission listserv? Raise your hand. That looks like almost half. That's good. Well, if you don't know about it, I found out about Lore because she posts on the listserv all the time. So that is a free service. You sign up for it and you get emails about mostly art events, theater things, music things. And you can post yourself, and when you do, it goes out to all the subscribers. I don't know how many subscribers there are right now. Sometimes it's thousands. So it's a great way to freely advertise. So our next show is, we've seen it up on the screen. It has to do with the history of Leroy Jewelers, an institution here in Tacoma. And it'll be presented by Steph Farber and his wife, Phyllis Harrison. So Steph is a lifelong Tacoman and graduate of Stadium High School, a BA in English from the U of W, and an MA in education from PLU led him to a teacher core position with the Tacoma Public Schools. He worked with underprivileged students for several years until TPS decided that one of the reasons his students were underprivileged was that he was one of their teachers.
Wow.
In 1973, he joined the family business, Leroy Jewelers, as a manufacturing jeweler and designer. His involvement in downtown Tacoma and the arts includes board membership with the Pantages Center, Broadway Center, the Children's Museum, Temple Beth El, the Downtown Merchants Group, the American Leadership Forum, and First Night Tacoma Pierce County. So these folks have done a lot for Tacoma. You're probably familiar with them. Oh, and Steph is currently co-chair of the City of Tacoma Parking Technical Advisory Group. Don't worry, you don't have to pay for parking around here at this time of night. Phyllis Harrison is also a Tacoma native. Wainwright, Hunt, and Wilson Silas, who like so many of us left and returned several times. She holds a BA in English from WSU, an MA in English from Colorado State University, and a Ph.D. in folklore from Indiana University. She returned to Tacoma in 1988 to curate a touring exhibit of maritime folklife from the Puget Sound region, which ultimately led to working with Mike Flalovich. I'll let you guys pronounce it properly. To create the Commencement Bay Maritime Center, now known as the Foss Waterway Seaport. Steph and Phyllis.
I just wanted to start out saying thank you, Lynn. Thank you for inviting us. You spoke of First Night Tacoma Pierce County. Lynn, thank you. Lynn was one of the stars of First Night for several years. She created the extravaganzas that we would have just prior to, or just leading up to midnight on First Night. The most famous or infamous of which was one that involved opera singers and bales of waste paper and rolling heads of local celebrities that almost caused a riot, but didn't quite. She's wonderful and is a gift to this community. Oh, look at us.
I guess I should see what it's like.
Yes. Leroy Jewelers. Leroy Jewelers was founded in Tacoma in 1941, and has been in Tacoma, been on Broadway between 9th and 13th in 5 different locations. And the place we're in right now is going to be there won't be a sixth location. It was started by my dad, Irving Farber, who graduated from Stadium, then went to the University of Washington, got a degree in English, and graduated during the Depression, so there was no payroll anywhere.
Yeah.
And he was an English major who couldn't find a job. Can you imagine such a thing? There was a little project that was going on in the state that looked like it might be able to support some people. So he and his college roommate, Jack Slotnick, went to Coulee City where they were building a dam. They did not work on the dam, but they opened a jewelry store. There was a grocery store in Tacoma that was going out of business. They bought a couple of the display cases, they broke them down, put them in an old Ford, drove to Coulee City and opened a jewelry store. And there what they discovered was that on payday, the workers at the dam could drink, they could gamble, they could do other stuff. And come Monday, when they were feeling guilty towards their moms or their wives or their girlfriends or their wives and their girlfriends, they could buy atonement gifts. And that's what these people, that's what these people provided. At the time the jewelry store closed down, or the time the dam was almost built, they closed that down. We moved to Tacoma. They moved.
How many stores do they have?
Oh, they had two. They were in Coulee City. Has anybody been to Coulee City?
Where is it?
Coulee City is a little smaller than this room.
My mom lives there.
Yeah, okay.
I grew up there.
Okay, then you know how small it was. They had two jewelry stores by the time they closed down there. One was selling jewelry, one was selling watches. A national firm that supplied the watches sent their salesmen out because they could not believe that any one business could sell that many watches. And figured that they were just laundering money well before money laundering happened. They did not, they passed. So this was their first store inside that, inside the building we saw back there. If you spend any time looking at that, you see cases with rings, you see cases of silver flatware. There's a radio in there. There's some watch repair at the back. It's a diamond store, and
3 minutes gets you credit.
3 minutes gives you credit. They were selling credit. When they opened in Tacoma, there were about a dozen jewelry stores in the downtown, in the blocks between 9th and 13th. They had to make their way there. And so these guys were promoters. Phyllis, why don't you want to continue?
Sure, you want to back up just a minute?
Sure.
So, thank you. So these guys were indeed promoters. Now, they've come from a boom town. They've come from a place where they started with one store, they ended up with two, and now they're in a prosperous downtown in a I don't know how we describe the size of Tacoma at that point, but they're in a prosperous, a thriving downtown, and they need to do their best to get as many customers as they can. And they did a pretty good job of it. So the newspaper ads that these guys came up with were amazing. Anything would do for a promotion. The local hockey team, when Irving's partner Jack went to war, there was a sale. When they had a flood in the building they were in, they had a sale. Anything to do. One of the things that happened that I thought was interesting looking at their ads, well, again, here we are looking at Army ads. And if you notice, the one in the top, I hope it's legible in back, they were right across from the Blue Mouse Theater. Anything will do for a promotion.
All right.
Oh, actually, we need to back up for a minute.
Okay, we're backing up.
This is our usual routine. Guess who didn't run through this morning? The building they were located in, their first spot in Tacoma, was 11th and Broadway, the old Fidelity building. So while they were running ads in the newspaper and generating business for the store, something else happened in 1949.
1949, this is a corner that most recently was Woolworths. In 1949, there was a pretty serious earthquake in Tacoma. The Fidelity building was destroyed, and they had to find a new place to go. So, there we go. They moved to a block further south, a couple doors up from Safeway, from Sears. Anybody remember Sears? They were a couple doors up from Sears. They had a larger space, it was a lighter space, a brighter space. They did not sell flowers, but I think this was opening day at that store. And let's see if I can do this. There's still no, I can't do this.
I can't talk that fast.
Okay. There's still silverware, there's still
Mixing bowl.
mixing bowls.
Looks like.
There are radios still, they sold pretty much anything, because they were merchants and promoters. Ultimately, they sold baseball mitts, and they sold mix masters, and they sold deep fryers for some people. They sold everything. Let's see.
Who swept the floor?
I swept the floor. That was really a much bigger floor when I was little. And let's see, go ahead.
Okay, so credit continued to be a big part of their marketing campaigns. And we had to put in this slide because of the car, of course. So,
I will point out that those two neon signs are still in our building.
Wow.
yeah,
And they've made the first one, the flat one, has made it 84 years now.
And it works?
It works.
Wow.
It works. They made things pretty good in those days.
Yeah, manufacturing, yeah.
so their marketing starts to take a little bit of a shift here. And part of it, I think, is also a shift in the nature of the store. Up to this point, they were pretty much, jewelry was not necessarily the hugest part of the store, because there were all these other good and wonderful things. Focus turns more towards jewelry, and in that era, things related to jewelry like flatware and china. Everybody had to have a hope chest. But they would start running things like promotions. The 52 Club, $1 down takes it home. So credit's still a major thing. But then we get into also contests. The favorite table where groups, the Rebecca Lodge, the Mecca Club, Daughters of Norway, would put together beautiful table settings, and I don't know who judged the contests, but probably Hazel and crew.
The fix was not.
Yeah, the fix was not in. They actually had a Bride of the Week club where a bride would be featured in a full page or almost a full page ad in the newspaper with china and crystal and flatware, all those things you just had to have. But also reaching out into the community. It's not just about the $1 a day that takes it home. It's about the contest as well. And we also start seeing ads that start talking about sharing information with the customer about what they're actually buying. A growing interest not just in 1,000 pendants in a jewelry case, but really the pieces that make them up, and an interest in diamonds, teaching people about gemstones. Now, this is certainly not the way we would talk about diamonds today, but it's a step in that direction.
A half carat for $355. No, no.
Probably not. And competitions where they would have brandy snifters, was it one of the grocery stores, brandy snifters with one diamond in the midst of rhinestones or whatever, or somebody guessed the diamonds.
You'd bring in a stone that you picked, they would tell you if you have a diamond or not. Strangely enough, the wives of all the Tradewell grocery store managers all seem to be the ones who found the diamonds.
But I think that speaks to a very different kind of community and to a reaching out into the community that was not necessarily there before.
There's one
Yeah.
here, there we go.
So, actually, I'm stepping into your territory, but so this was a typical Leroy Jewelers window at that particular time. This one was featuring Bulova watches, a far cry from what you might see in one of our windows today.
This was, the sign toward the center right says, take home your Bulova and pay in 1965. This also happened about the time of Sputnik. This also happened about the time that the Bulova Watch Company had created a revolutionary watch called the Accutron that was different from all other watches and is still being marketed today. But they built this big window about it.
And
Go ahead.
so while many things were bubbling away and working beautifully, another thing was happening in Tacoma that was impacting retail in downtown, and that was the beginning of the Tacoma Mall, which was rapidly siphoning off that retail core as people flocked to the mall, and at least one person decided to dig in her heels.
Yes. At that same time, at the beginning of 1965, my dad died. Now, my mother, who had been working with him pretty much constantly, she was suddenly left with a business in a downtown that was not prospering, with one son away at college, another son who was going to college the next year, and what was she going to do? One other thing I should share with you is that when my dad died, there were salesmen who would travel the country, travel from city to city, representing different jewelry companies. You would buy a bunch of rings, you would buy watches, you would buy other things from these people. And they were made in New York, they were made in Chicago, and they were shipped out to you, and that's what you sold.
Drummers, right?
They were called drummers, they were salesmen. Right after my dad died, several of these salesmen were at a hotel. I think it may have been the Winthrop. They were at a hotel, and one of them started a pool. The pool was, let's see how long that dame on Broadway will try to run a jewelry store, because everybody knows a woman can't run a jewelry store. Two things happened at that point. One was, for some reason, that guy never got another order from us. But the other thing is that my mother retired from the business at the age of 85.
All right.
So apparently a woman can.
There you go.
So what did she do when she had the two kids, about one in college, one about to go to college downtown, was not doing well? Her husband had just died. What she did was she moved the store up a block again, up to the spot where the theater on the square is, just down from the Pantages. And she opened a new store there. She moved it there. And it is bigger, and I didn't even have to be small to see that the floor there was wide. And she did a big job with China, and she did a big job with watches, you can see there. And she also did a big job with changing the way she was doing business and we were doing business. My mother was the daughter of a teacher, And teaching was part of what she believed in. And she knew that if we were going to survive, if we were going to prosper in downtown Tacoma, there was now the Tacoma Mall that had many, many jewelry stores out there. There were neighborhood jewelry stores. There were strip malls just coming around. And if we had the same stuff and did the same thing everybody else did, why come downtown? So what she did was, first she educated herself even more, while I was doing homework for Stadium, she was doing homework for the Gemological Institute of America, learning about diamonds. She bought one of the first microscopes to look at diamonds that she needed in buying goods, but she also taught her customers, how to look, what to look for when you're buying a diamond. So her job was educating as well as selling. Where are we here? And this was her home away from home. And we have made it. We have gone.
So should we go on?
2 minutes.
Okay, 2
Okay.
minutes. Okay, so how about, actually, if you back up just a minute, a couple of things. One, I mean, that became Hazel's seat, and that for the rest of her career with Leroy Jewelers. But she was also revolutionary in bringing in a chair to sit clients down in front of her and talk to them about what they wanted to do, what was their story, and yes, we will help you tell it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, yes. One of the things we did was we brought, as the city emptied out, we brought in, when we were the corner store between 9th and 11th and Broadway, there was nobody else on our block. We brought in, we refurbished and we put up a big street clock for the city that said basically, we're not going anywhere, and this is a good place to be. Last thing?
Well,
Here we go.
one final thing about Hazel. During that period of time, Hazel's legend continued to grow, and there was a time when,
Well, the city manager, when somebody would come in with an idea for redeveloping downtown or doing something on the waterway, his question to them was, have you talked to Mrs. Farber?
So I, at some point, took a job at the Broadway Center, which is where I met Steph. I'll condense a lot of history here. And one way or another, Steph and Hazel wound up helping me launch the Art Stop, a contemporary craft gallery, which ultimately, when we got married, moved into 940 Broadway with Leroy Jewelers. And I can remember spending many an hour polishing cases, listening to Hazel sell diamonds, and wondering how I would ever be able to talk to people about gemstones. So, and these are some of the pieces that we have made. And
Telling people's story. It's not like, do you want this ring or this ring? What is a ring that tells your story? What is the thing that could be yours and not anybody else's?
so this is a particularly interesting piece.
A challenge.
Yeah, this was a challenge. One of our clients, who has a lovely collection of family jewelry, had a pair of pearl earrings that had been kind of taken apart in pieces used for this, that, and the other thing. And he brought us 2 pieces from those earrings and said, design a pendant with these, but you have to use pieces from these old empty mountings, and you have to use them as they are. You can't melt them down and make them into something else.
And so,
And the pieces were,
right,
yeah.
those are the semicircles.
yeah, 2 little half circles.
And although it's hard to read this, this is just a fabulous gemstone. And we built you can see over here, we built a round surface that reflected the whole thing. It tells a story, it's unlike anything anybody else in the world has. And it just looks really cool.
And I'll talk really fast, but let's share the stories on the others.
Okay.
And we can zoom through the others. So this was actually one of our first computer-assisted design projects, which was quite shocking. This was a client who was an avid knitter, and she wanted a knitted ring. And thanks to the world of computer, we were.
But his story was he didn't care about knitting, but he collected glass art. And the glass artist he really liked was somebody who did these kind of teardrop kind of shapes. And so we built a ring that can.
And the centerpiece was, are the diamonds from her original engagement rings.
Yes. One other thing, our touch with the community. Russell, don't love me and leave me. This was when the Russell Company was thinking about leaving Tacoma. And we put this on a billboard right by the Russell Company. And within 12 minutes, we started getting people at the Russell Company started emailing these all around the building. And
One of our hallmarks has been kind of outrageous ads, so continuing that
we found that humor doesn't hurt. Why buy your jewelry or you buy your underwear? And there's more stories about that one. The breast ad.
This was probably our most endearing, and Hazel loved it. She loved it.
Yes. We had two beautiful earrings, and how do you say these are beautiful earrings? You put them in a place where people are likely to look at it. There's another story about this one too. Lastly,
So the Spectrum Awards are kind of the Academy Awards for the jewelry industry. And in the time that they're internationally known, they're awarded by the American Gem Trade Association. And Leroy Jewelers and Steph have been honored to receive 3 in the course of our career there. This was one of them, Waterfall. It's quartz and diamond and moonstone and platinum. This is a pendant. You don't see the chain, but this is a pendant. Carved quartz backed by mother of pearl, pave Montana sapphires and diamond, and then a blue chalcedony also backed with mother of pearl.
call this the fanciest Zippo lighter you'll ever see.
This is a magnificent graduated strand of matched aquamarines. These literally glow in the dark.
And that is what we do. And this is who we are.